James is having a waffle this afternoon. It's strawberry, golden kiwi, blackberry, and avocado. I'm having half a kiwi. He's going to be talking about Motherless Child. And I'm going to review these movies. Bad Times at the El Royale, Super Pumped, The Night Clerk, and Vivarium. And we're going to enjoy some guava juice because we don't drink juice. But we were given that.
So occasionally,
so we
don't go out of our way to get it.
No, we were given it.
I don't think it's terribly healthy, and Pauline's got the logo turned away from you, just in case.
I'm not gonna. I might tell you if it's disgusting or whatever, but I think guava juice should be okay. I picked
like
it out because James had guava in Africa.
We had it growing almost like growing like a weed in our backyard. We basically out in the countryside and stuff like that. So we had lemon trees growing in our kind of side yard, almost like front yard. And we had a big driveway like you'd have on a mansion, lined with rice thorn. It seemed like miles of it. It wasn't that much. We had a telescope in our. The telescope was gone. The guy who had it previously was an astronomer, but it still had the casing in our front yard. You could play baseball in our front yard. I mean, real baseball, like. It wasn't as big as a major league.
But at the same time, you had to heat your water with fire.
With a witch's cauldron in the back.
And
we collected our
running water
on two big, they were like silos.
People did in Canada.
On the back of our house, we had chopped wood, or my dad did, I guess, for our... we had some workers. But they would have chopped the wood for a stove.
It's warm.
Yeah, we grew peanuts in the ground. You had to cook them. You put them on a pan. You'd shell them and put them on a pan and eat them. Otherwise, even the peanuts that we've got now are bad for you because they've got, what are they called, aflatoxins?
Yeah, but I mean that's in lots of things. There's like. You have to, sure. Look, you can look it up.
Yeah. And we had a stand of bananas out in our backyard. And we even had a little peach tree. It didn't do very well, but one little peach tree. Every so occasionally we produce a really small peach. So we had a lot of stuff, but tons of guavas and stuff like that. So I like guava. They were good.
Anyway, so Bad Times at the El Royale gets the top of the stack rating.
So don't let the cover fool you, is what you're saying.
Yeah,
it's kind of corny looking.
Yeah, I didn't think it'd be great, but it is. It was long. There's a warning of violence on it. And
wow. Yeah, so that's sure to attract a lot of people.
Yeah, I suppose so. But let's see, I'm trying to find the running time on here because it was a long movie. But there we go, 141 minutes. And it didn't feel too long. There was a lot of, it says on the cover that it's the best thriller in years, but I didn't find it to be a thriller. It was like a mystery. You're trying to figure out, it's like one of those, it's something like a Clue mystery, right? You have, your characters are set out and you're like, okay, well, what's going on with these characters? What's the story behind them? Whatever.
You mean like Clue, like
the game?
Mr. Colonel Mustard?
Yeah, sure.
Miss Scarlet?
Sure.
Stuff like that. Mm.
Anyway. Yeah, it's great. It's well worth watching. And everyone should watch it. Unless you're a child and I'm talking about people that are grown and can handle some violent content.
Advising viewer discretion.
Sure.
But of course, anytime it involves sex and violence, they're really advising viewer indiscretion. Mm-hmm. But it's just a matter of semantics. Oh, Jeff Bridges is in it. Yeah, he seemed pretty convincing in that.
Everyone did a great job.
Chris Hemsworth is even in it.
the woman with the lovely voice. Wow, what a lovely voice.
I'm telling you, she was singing a cappella.
So
And
perfect.
she did. It kind of slowed down, but it still conveyed the excitement. You can't hurry love. You know, I
Yeah.
like even Phil Collins
Well, I
didn't
like
sound
that
too
she
bad doing that.
I like that she'd slowed it down because it's. I mean, that goes with the meaning, right?
Well, the Supreme sounded like they couldn't wait. You know what
Well,
I'm
I guess
saying?
that's good too, right?
Yeah, so it's.
But-
But she did a good job slowing it down.
It was great.
What was the song that she did before? She did an even better job.
Oh,
with
she
that
did
one.
all of her songs
Mm.
that she sung in that
Mm.
were top notch.
I don't know who
Top
it is,
notch.
but yeah, she's got a great voice and
Yeah.
really knows how to use it. Some people have great
Yeah.
voices and just abuse it or misuse it or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, I
that's-
haven't heard. I don't know if I've heard. Okay, maybe one do the Unchained Melody that well. She was really
That's right. That's the other one that she
nailing
did.
it.
They didn't do all of it, I don't think, but she did a better job, I gotta say, than Hart.
Oh yeah.
Hart.
Yeah, she did.
The woman usually she does it just.
Yeah.
She does a great job. She's hitting all the notes and all that sort of stuff, but it doesn't quite have the feeling, the right feeling.
Mhm.
Ordinarily, she can sing stuff that's laid back or up tempo or whatever. But the best is still the Righteous Brothers. But that woman did a great, and she's doing it a cappella. It's amazing.
Awesome.
But she doesn't have. I think it's Bobby Hatfield that's saying the high stuff. I don't know if there's any backup from the guy who did the deep stuff. He did the main vocal. Their big hit. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But yeah, she's awesome. They also had some interesting cover things, or not cover things, but old hits. That's the one that had good vibrations in it, right? Or was that another one? Anyway. The old Beach Boys thing.
Super pumped. The Battle for Uber. It's based on the true story behind the meteoric rise and fall of Uber founder Travis blah blah blah.
It's fallen, thank heavens. I mean, it's such a scary concept. Hey, you know, like I'm going to pick someone up in New York. I'm going to fight the cab companies, and I'm just going to, you know, like, how do you don't flag someone down, you phone it up, right? So you get the new Ted Bundy in your car. Brilliant.
Sure. So, anyway, great acting in this. And I wouldn't have thought it would have been as interesting as it actually was. So they did a good job. The Night Clerk. Now, this one is about somebody who's autistic, and he's a night clerk, and there's a common theme in the stories that I'm showing you here. And I didn't intend this, this is what came up. And these stories are, I guess I'll get to it. The night clerk, he doesn't really know how to act human, so he watches people in the hotel. He works at a hotel, and he's set up spyware throughout the hotel, and he's watching them so that he can act more human. And things go very wrong. And that sounds funny, because you'd think, okay, well, him watching people, that's wrong. But he's autistic, and you're not really feeling that so much. You're just feeling like, kind of like he's an alien or something, or maybe a robot watching people. You don't really know, right? But you don't necessarily feel like it's wrong what he's doing. But anyway, well worth watching. So, just not as much as the first. Vivarium. And this one is about a couple who they're looking to buy a home, and they go into an office, and somebody is trying to sell them on Suburbia, And so the guy takes them out. He says, "Follow me, and you drive and follow me in your car." And whatever. And so they get there, and they're looking at the place, and he disappears. And then they decide, okay, well, I guess we'll find our way out on our own. But it's one of these suburbs where all the houses look exactly the same. And they're driving around, and eventually it becomes night, and they keep coming back to this house. And when you're introduced to the house, he's like, okay, this is number 9. This is set up for family. He's introducing it. And you get this feeling right away. And I thought, why didn't they make it this is number 6? Because right at that moment, I was thinking, well, this is like The Prisoner, right? And so, they could have had Jesse Eisenberg make a joke about, if I am number 6, then who is number 1 or something, and that would have been great. But they didn't do that. But that's okay, because in my mind I did. And so they decide to sleep in the house because they can't get out of the suburb. They just keep getting lost in it. And everything they try, they can't get out. And then they decide to eat the food that's in the fridge. They'd been offered a bottle of champagne and some strawberries. That was all that was there. So they ate that, and they were like, it doesn't have any flavor, and they were surprised about that. And I guess I'm giving a lot away about this movie, but honestly, it's in the bottom of the stack, so it was good, but
Eisenberg is usually good stuff, isn't he?
But I don't know. I did fall asleep at one point, and I didn't bother to rewind it because I knew where it was going.
You fell asleep.
Yeah, I did. And so they get they get a box of food. They find a box of food has been delivered out in front of their place, and so they look at it, and the man decides, I'm going to burn this house down. That'll get them here, right? And so he does, and they fall asleep on the sidewalk out front, and in the morning the house is back. And so they have this, a baby is delivered in a box out front, and in the writing on the box says, raise this boy, and something like that, and you'll be released. And well, you can guess how they're released after they raise the boy. So, and he's not a boy, right? They know he's not a boy because he's growing way faster than humans do. And but in any case, it gets you thinking about like in this one, they were watched all the time by this boy, and just like in this one. And in this movie, or well, TV miniseries, whatever, Super Pumped, they're watching. They're watching, and I don't want to give it away because it is worth watching this limited series. But they're doing things like they're watching in ways that they shouldn't be. So there's that. And then Bad Times at the El Royale. Well, there's the rooms are also, the people are being watched in the rooms. So there's this common theme with that, and there's other similarities too. So it's interesting when you pick up a stack and you end up like, wow, these all have something in common. And it gets you thinking, how much, like with the movie on the bottom of the stack, at the end, you're left with, well, that's your purpose. If you're a mother, you raise your child, and then you pass away or whatever. That's all you're meant to do. You don't do anything past that point. And I mean, it could be said that the father is even less valuable given this what happens in the story. But I mean, how do you feel about it when you're how would you feel if you're watching the movie and rather than all of the houses being empty except for yours, they were filled with other couples that were living basically the same sort of life that you were? Would you still feel that they're trapped in a vivarium kind of thing? And all of their food was coming to them in a box, you know, it was all plastic wrapped sort of thing. And how does your food come to you? You know, you don't grow it. You don't. You're separated from it. It just comes to you, right?
Go ahead. Kind of surprised they used the title Vivarium.
I am
people
too.
wouldn't understand
No.
what it means.
Well,
like you understand what it means
reptile
because you've had
but
stuff like that.
yeah. But in any case, you have to think about that the movie, and then it gets you thinking about your own life and how would you feel if you moved into the suburbia and I mean you have your food, you have whatever, and they even deliver a child for you to raise. But in the story, the mother kept insisting that she was not the mother. She did not break down and agree that she was the mother at any point. And but a lot of people do. I mean, I was faced with wondering about whether I should go through with in vitro fertilization and all that. And I would have had to I went to a fertility clinic and I would have had to keep trying and trying, apparently. It would have been extremely expensive.
$10,000 a shot, I think, is what they were saying.
And
no guarantee that anything
so then it would have been
would work.
cheaper and more likely to be successful if I got a donor ovum. Well, so I thought about it, and had the government paid for the donor ovum and the treatment so that I could become pregnant with somebody else's child, I would have done it. And the government should have paid because they were the reason that I couldn't have a child of my own. So, or of our own. But, I mean, and then that got me thinking more, like when I was a teenager, I thought, oh, well, there are so many unwanted children, I'll just adopt. And that was my plan when I was a teenager. And then faced with that option again, much later in life, I realized, no, I'm not interested in that. And I don't know. I mean, we're still kind of juggling it out, and well, if we have a farm and we feel healthy enough to do so, and this and that. But you know what? We're happy going and feeding the birds, singing songs, whatever. And you just, whether you're in a vivarium or not, I guess it's, can you find a way to be happy with yourself? Well, I guess that's about it. So you can go ahead
You're
and
talking
talk
about kids and adoption and stuff like that. Here's a guy, it's called Motherless Child, and it's a song that Eric Clapton, I think, covered. This is a biography of Eric Clapton. Fairly recent, maybe 2012, so 2015, more recent. So it was put out when he was 73 years old. He's still alive. I haven't heard about him dying. It'd be big, CBC would cover it. He'd be 81, approximately. 81 sometime this year. Forgotten which month his birthday's in. And he was born to a 15 or 16-year-old mother. She kind of left him with his grandmother, her mom. And his mother never really, she'd come back. She only really appeared back in his life when he became rich and famous. So he became rich, and then she found out about his, because of his fame and stuff like that. His grandma looks to be quite a nice woman, eh?
Yeah, I see.
Proud of her
Yeah.
silverware, and proud of her son. This is before the drugs really started taking hold. Just as they were taking hold. So that's a very nice picture. That's Rose Clapton, and there's Eric as well, dressed very handsome. He looks great in purple. But generally, there's too much of a love of clothing and stuff like that. But there are some nice pictures in here, some that are standard. Somewhere along the line, someone
How can they go wrong with guava?
decided to give him what we used to call a bush cut or something like that. So there he is, looking very uncouth, basically. Short haircut. So this is when he's with a group called the Yardbirds. And no one's ever heard of the Yardbirds, but they spawned Eric Clapton, and they spawned Jeff Beck. Jeff Beck replaced Eric Clapton in the group. Jeff Beck died, I think, just last year or early this year. And both were phenomenal guitarists in a very different way. After he left the group, he was a bit of a purist. Eric Clapton was a blues purist, and he went to about as pure as you could get, well, still being white and English. Went to a group called the Blues Breakers, and led by this dude called John Mayall. Not much in the looks department. He didn't help it with that kind of scruffy-looking beatnik beard. So there's Eric Clapton, looking, with a big sideburns. I guess you call them mutton chops there. This is, I think, their drummer Howie Flint, sorry. Kind of a non-entity, but this guy's with a whole lot less hair. Usually he's wearing a hat or something like that. It's relatively famous. He's more famous because of his first syllable of his name. McVie is the name. Changed to Mac. He's half of the name Fleetwood Mac. So he's the bass player for Fleetwood Mac. Of course, I don't know if that group will ever form again. They're already busted up. Before his former wife, Christine Perfect, otherwise better known after she married him as Christine McVie. So there he was. He's an awesome bass player. Was then. Still is, if he's still alive. Had a little bit of trouble with alcohol. But John McVie. So that goes back to, I think, something like 66 or something like that. 1966, not 1866. And there's Eric Clapton with a guy he discovered in London, even though Jimi Hendrix, I believe, came from Seattle. Part indigenous, part African American. So that's before, I think, Jimi Hendrix was discovered in the United States, just before. They hung with some very talented people, and people that became famous. There's Jack Bruce, Ginger Baker. Ginger Baker died, I think, just recently, maybe last year. Jack Bruce died of liver problems. I think he had cancer and then maybe liver failure. This is what happens when you abuse drugs and stuff like that. The real talent in this group, the best talent. Baker was a great drummer, not a great human being by any means. Clapton's a great guitarist, but here's the man. Jack Bruce is one of the all-time rock and roll greats. Co-wrote White Room, that's Cream's best record, one of the best records ever put out in rock and roll. Classically trained in cello, I'm sure he could write music, write it out, transcribe it, all this kind of stuff. Phenomenal singer, just stunningly good singer. It's just such a shame that he became what seems to have been a drug casualty. Then here's Eric Clapton. After Cream broke up, he wanted Stevie Winwood to join the group. Ginger Baker didn't want Stevie Winwood to join the group. Stevie Winwood, again, is an awesome person. He might well have been a teenager when he first made it big with the Spencer Davis group, and he might still have been a teenager when he helped form Blind Faith. Ginger Baker, here's the thing. Ginger Baker doesn't want Stevie Winwood in Cream, and here he is. He kind of imposed himself on Blind Faith, and Eric Clapton said, he's a bit of a wishy-washy character and stuff like that. Let it happen. What should have happened? Clapton wanted Stevie Winwood in Cream. Stevie Winwood, Jack Bruce, and Eric Clapton, and then any other drummer in the world, Ringo Starr or whomever, would have been better than this idiot. Ginger Baker's was a phenomenal player throughout his life, but he was a bad person. They should just have got rid of him. And Stevie Winwood, he could play lead guitar, organ, piano. He probably could play drums, and a great singer too, great stylist and stuff like that. That would have been the all-time group maybe, because Cream had this habit of writing with poets. That's why White Room, the number I was just mentioning by Cream, is so good. It had lyrics written by Pete Brown. A poet wrote Tales of Brave Ulysses. It's not nearly as good as White Room, but he was more of an artist than a poet. But Clapton, he's self-destructive, and destructive of other people. So you look at this poor, it's probably a girl, not a woman. Her name was, Alice Ormsby Gore? Yeah, Alice Ormsby Gore. Clapton took up with her when she was 17, I think, at the latest. And of course she picked up his heroin habit, and she died, I believe, of heroin or of complications considerably later. But he just ruined her life. It's absolutely horrible. Here he is, junked out, looking a little bit like Dave Crosby with a double or triple chin. Here's his fancy place. Here's a group that he went, and this is Delaney and Bonnie Bramlett. So they had Delaney and Bonnie and friends. And two of their friends included touring around. And you probably recognize George Harrison. Here's Eric Clapton. It's a little harder to recognize him because he had more looks than a chameleon, really. But what does he do? He steals the backing group. He doesn't steal George Harrison. He only steals his wife. But he steals the backing group for Delaney and Bonnie. And it's just stunning. This group, Carl Radle, one of the best bass players ever. Jim Gordon. I can remember, I think it was John Landau or someone, a critic, saying he's the best rock and roll drummer, at least the hardest hitter. Big trouble is he was hard hitting in real life. He ended up killing his mom, I believe, with a hammer. He's schizophrenic and should have been institutionalized. But of course, this being the post-Ken Casey One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest era and the Michel Foucault era, he was out and about and hammering on the drums and hammering on his relatives and stuff like that. It's Bobby Whitlock, who shared the vocal duties with Eric Clapton. These people are called, along with a guy called Allman, Dwayne Allman, Derek and the Dominoes, really Eric and the Dominoes. Eric, he was trying to do it, like